Okay, could I have a motion to approve the minutes of 11/15/18?
Motion to approve the minutes from November 15th.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
I can abstain, right, I wasn't there.
That still gives us 5. Did do you send these to Barbara, all the minutes?
I did.
Keep a record, okay. Public speak. I don't see any public, I see counselors. Jeff, we'll wait for, you're here for the dog park, I assume, so. City official communications, Jamie, do you have anything?
We got a newsletter from the Community Preservation Coalition. It was in the email,
Yeah, I saw that.
in the Dropbox. So it's the only, not on the agenda.
Okay. Nothing else. Account balances and open project updates. Anything on open projects? There's 89% of the Housing Authority reasonable accommodation is still remaining. I'm just curious how they're doing. You know anything about that?
I have not.
That was done in 2016, so it's been almost 3 years, and they haven't spent any money.
Well, they've had 3 projects that they've done.
Well, it just says the remaining is $35,000 remaining of a $40,000 grant.
Yeah, they did 2 projects. The intent was that they would be able to use that money to do these ADA
Right.
accommodations as they're requested.
So we'll keep it
they-
open for a while?
So that was the original plan.
Okay, good.
But I haven't had any updates other than the 2 projects that they submitted for reimbursement and were complete.
Okay. The Mount Tom North Trailhead Park, that's what we're talking about tonight. The money is actually going to be spent soon, right, to purchase that? I mean, we have, the CPA 380 was given.
Yeah, can I address that in the
Sure.
trails?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
get an
Okay,
update when we
I
get
have
to
other
it.
things to
We
add.
just like to go over these. My big issue is keeping funds open for a long time with money encumbered that maybe we could use if people aren't gonna spend it. That's why I go over it. It has nothing to do with
We
that.
fully intend to utilize that fund.
Oh, I know you do. All right. So let's go into applications. Mount Tom Trailhead Park, East Street. Hey, John, we'll give John a minute to get settled. This one, I got them both in here. Uh-oh. Okay, you can tell us, you're looking for a set-aside for the grants program? Why don't you explain that, Ben?
Sure, thank you. So the committee members have a memo dated January 14th in front of them. Before I get into the memo, can I give a quick update? So
Sure.
the next question about the previous allocation, 380 by this committee. We do fully intend to access that, those funds towards the acquisition. And as you hopefully have heard, that in early January, the city was awarded the park grant, which was our ambitious yet very sound application for $400,000 towards the acquisition of that parcel. So we are very excited that we have nearly all the funds in place to move forward with the acquisition. However, just today, I did learn from the Kestrel Land Trust that there was a third grant component that was not awarded. So it was a conservation partnership grant.
How much was that?
It was for $85,000. And they just got word from the state today that their request was not funded. So I had a conversation with the land manager, Mark Walmsley, who came before this committee before today, And we talked a little bit, he apologized for not being able to come for this discussion, we had several meetings already this week. It causes a couple questions, but it overall is something that everyone, so both Kestrel and Plaskomic, and I think myself included, feel like we can work through that. The best scenario, the best situation that we have is that the property owner gave the option agreement to Kestrel, and it extends all the way till September 2019. So in this case, which is very unique, we have the beauty of time, the luxury of time, which is something that you don't often get in land acquisition.
So, are you pursuing other grants, or do you think you'll need to ask the CPA
Well,
to cover this acquisition money that you didn't get?
I don't think there is a decision or enough information yet to know that. I think this committee seems to show a great deal of support for the project. I guess there is a chance that over the coming months, either the planning department or Kestrel or Plaskomic would come to this committee for $85,000. However, Kestrel immediately started to identify what other sources of funding are available. So there was a discussion about just getting a bank loan, whether Plaskomic or Kestrel can get some other funding sources to fill that gap and move forward. So I think the expectation would be that there are going to be many attempts to fill as much of that gap as possible before coming back to this committee. So I did want to mention that because prior to this morning at 10, I had been preparing sort of an approach to look at a trails grant opportunity that we have from the state. So we can go back to the $85,000 at any point, but I'd like to just talk about the Mass Trails grant for a minute.
Just one question.
Sure.
Do we have to own the property before you can apply for the grant, or to get the trails designed or whatever?
No, so the guidance associated with the grant says that whoever is applying does not need to have ownership of the parcel. We do need a written statement from the property owner that they are willing and able to put the land aside for public purposes. So my current approach is being as proactive as possible. So in speaking with Jamie, realize that this agenda, your meeting January 17th, the deadline to submit this application is February 1st. So I made a pretty calculated decision to try to talk to this committee today to talk about the idea of providing a potential match. So the way this grant works is you can ask the state for up to $300,000 for a project, and it requires a 20% match. Because we're talking about design, we think that there's a much lower range we would ask for much less from the grant. I don't have a figure, but my estimate would be in the $75,000 range is what we would ask the state to pay for design. And so we'd be potentially asking the CPA for a 20% match over that. And I ran some numbers in the cover letter. I didn't use 75,000, so.
15 to 30 is what you said.
Right, so.
That's fine.
So 75,000 would result in $15,000 of a match by CPA. So I'm not asking for that money to be allocated at this point, but what would be highly desirable, what has shown works really well to the state, is that if this committee understands that there would be a match and the CPA committee supports the project and would vote to set aside the funds and craft a letter. There's no risk at this point. There's no funds being removed from CPA, but it's a commitment that if we were awarded the Trails grant, that I could come back to CPA and you would be able to provide the match. So
I don't have a problem with that. I don't think we need to set the money aside. We just have to write the commitment letter.
Okay,
I think
right.
if this committee is in favor. I do want to know, I think I'm a little confused.
Yes.
The initial cost of $75,000 grant for design, for the trails.
Right.
So let's say the trails cost design, you get an architect or landscape architect to
Yep.
do it for $75,000.
Correct.
Then there's gonna have to be a cost to actually do the work.
Correct.
So that's down the road a couple of years.
Right.
What do you think that's gonna be? I think the committee should be, you have any guess, even if it's an educated guess?
I tried to get some numbers from Pisconic Conservation Trust on how they built Mutter's Field.
This is much larger though, isn't it?
It's potentially longer and you have topography. You know,
Going up a hill.
going with ADA, the idea of an accessible trail and topography, they don't work well together. So it's not there's no direct comparison, but the idea, the concept in general is very similar to Mutter's Field, which is a medium-sized parking area, trailhead, and then an accessible trail. So there's a old house site, which is basically like a lookout. With design plans, you know, there would be a design component where they would assess the site. We have a full topographic survey, so there's a lot of work that's been done that might make the design less costly. But there would be the assessment of the property, there would be preliminary designs, there would be, I would imagine, 2 public meetings at least to present preliminary plans and get information on what it would look like and what people would want to see. And then the ultimate goal is to set up construction drawings that are suitable for someone to bid on and go out for construction.
And that's
So-
all part of the $75,000
Right,
you're
two construction
estimating.
drawings, yes.
Okay.
We would probably have cost estimates for what it might actually cost to construct it, but we have seen now a couple times with grants that you're either designing or you're constructing.
Right, that's.
So this is an opportunity for us to work on the designs over, you know, like a year, and we would be shovel-ready, so to speak, for another funding source, ideally a grant for construction. So we're trying to continue this momentum and prepare as we can to be ready to.
I fully expected it, Scott.
I noticed in the letter you sent, it said that the Mass Trails program is for like design, create, and maintain trails. So could you go back to the same source like a second time for the creation of
I
it?
think so. You can also construct, if that wasn't clear, you can construct with the same
Right.
source of money, but so. you know,
And I guess the follow-up to that is, and if we can go back, what's the, like, just strategic, is there a strategic reason to sort of do this part first and then go back again, as opposed to one application where it would, where it would fund the entire project?
Yeah, so I do want,
I don't think they'll fund the project without knowing what the design
yeah,
is.
that's, I mean, there's
that's
a chicken and
yeah,
egg there
yeah.
where with a straight face, we would never be able to prepare a project that is design and construction.
Right.
Because we have no way to calculate those costs.
So it's common, I mean, with this program, I would think then that it would be fairly common for applicants to go to them twice, right? I mean,
Yeah,
for the
to be
justice.
honest, I don't know how long this program has been around. It seems like this
Okay.
has been revamped.
Okay.
Is the park grant also available to look at, or is that is that just for
Yep. Someone-
acquiring land?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one of these two or both have a cooling off year. So I think it's part, I think the expectation would be that we got a great, huge park grant. We might not be able to apply for that next year. We might, and that's perfect because we would hit a different funding source for design over the next year. Then maybe in the 3rd year, we could go back to park
Or
to
ask
fund
both.
part or all of the construction project.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I have no problem with this. I really want that fully developed. Beautiful trails. Committee members, do you have any concerns? I think we can make a motion to commit up to $30,000, which is the high end, for a match for design, for a design grant from the Mass Trails Grant Program, that the CPA would commit to that. And I would be happy to sign the letter like I did for the facade grant. Jamie, you could just write that up and I'll sign it, as long as the membership votes in favor. Is that sufficient? I would think it is. I
Yes.
mean, we're committing it in that if it comes back to us, we will all know we voted in favor. You're not gonna say no after you voted in favor. I don't, in other words, setting aside money, which is part of another agenda topic, requires us to get a supplemental appropriation through the council. I just don't need to do that
Okay.
twice. I wanna do a little more for the town hall, so,
I think in the past, we used the language reserve when we're putting it aside within just the committee, and set aside when we're actually going to city council from the appropriation.
okay, if you could set it aside, I want you to talk to Valerie, because I think you can do it if we do it out of the open space recreation account, and we don't move it from reserve to that account. I have to do appropriation to take money out of reserve. But you can move money out of, it. You can set aside money within the open space account, which is what this would come from, right?
I don't believe that.
If we have to.
I think that within those, the open space set aside, within the set aside accounts, any money being moved out of them requires a vote of the committee and then finance subcommittee
Okay.
and city council.
Well, I'd rather not have to do that. So if the commitment letter, do you know if that's sufficient? Because you used the word set aside, which would take a while. We wouldn't make the February 1st deadline.
No, it's not necessary. I mean, I
Okay.
think what would be ideal is something, a letter from this committee that
Mhm.
this date, you got an overview of that project, and, I don't know if that's where, I don't know what the right language is, but that you, as a committee, are willing or able to allocate those funds if awarded. I mean, it's a little bit of wordsmithing, but I don't think there's a formal action.
Essentially,
that
we'll
needs-
vote to fund it contingent on the approval of the grant
Sure,
at the state
okay,
level.
yep, I think that kind of language.
You want to
would be
make a
close.
motion there, Ryan?
I will happily make that motion.
All right, and just make sure you say Mount, let's see, what is it?
Up to 30, and it's a Mass Trails grant.
Before you make the motion, may I present one other thing? So,
Okay.
I currently have a request in with a local engineering landscape architect company to come up with the cost estimate. So what we asked them was, what would you estimate the design of this parking area, trailhead, and trail would be? And that's what we're going to base our request on.
But you think it'd be more than 150?
No,
Because
I don't.
30,000, we're going to say up to
I
30,000.
think that would be, that's where I was going, and I appreciate that, because I think in the guidance, they do say that 20% matches the minimum. But if you can put more skin in the game, they do weight that. So if you were willing to go with up to 30,000, or,
Mhm.
yeah, I guess up to 30,000, and if it's less than 150,000 in terms of estimate, so you would be talking about a 30% match if it were.
In other words, you're not asking us for a 20% match. We're committing $30,000 to the project. So
I
if
think
it's,
that would be useful if you're willing to commit to
Because-
that, because then it creates a slide scale of percentage going up.
is everybody okay with that?
That makes sense.
Instead
So if
of-
we commit 30 grand, we're paying almost half the project?
Well, it may not be 75, it may be 150. We don't know what it's going to
That's
cost.
true.
We're just
So,
saying up to 30, but not tied to a certain percentage of the Trails grant.
Well, also,
It's a
if
good
we,
question, that-
if we,
It's a good question, yeah.
I mean, if we say up to 30, that,
Gives you some.
that gives you, I mean, like, for what you're doing, it doesn't necessarily say, you know what I mean, like, it seems like it would still accomplish that same goal, saying like
Yeah.
the city is willing to do this up to 30,000, and then that could be.
But if you
Mr. Hunter raised a
find
good
out
point.
it's
I
going to
don't-
cost $100,000,
Yeah.
instead of giving 20 grand, you want to give 25, just to show them that it's a little more than 20. I don't think the committee is going to have a problem with that, do you?
You raised a great question, so I appreciate that, and I think it might be safer to just say 20% or up to 30. I'm worried about, so if it came in at 50,000,
But we say no less than
You're just saying
20%.
20% of the project
yeah.
up to a
30,000.
maximum of 30,000.
Up to a maximum of 30% or 30,000?
30,000.
30,000.
Okay.
No less than 20% up to 30,000.
But are we not giving him the flexibility to give a little more than 20%?
We don't wanna lose it over
That would-
$5,000,
right,
right?
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, if you think it helps them think, hey, they really want this, I mean, I'd rather get the grant than not.
But if
So
you
say
say no less than
25%.
20, then you're guaranteeing
Yeah.
you're gonna get 20 and we may give you more.
Well, no, he has to know, well, okay, I don't know,
Do you want to say
whatever
25%
wording you
up to
think is the,
$30,000? 25% match up to 30,000 to give you.
Yeah,
some
that would be
room.
better, because that gives us, so,
Get
the
you
way,
room.
yeah, the way the
That's
state
good.
ranks these is 20% is the minimum match.
Okay.
If we can go above that, then we're throwing in, and plus, the illustrations that we have so far is that this committee is powerful in its ability to support leverage. The state has given the city of Easthampton kudos for doing that, so I think the 25% is actually where we should be.
up to, so 25% up to
up,
30.
yeah,
After that, I think that's perfect, because that goes over the 20% minimum, and that gives me clarity as to where I go.
And 30,000 is 20% of 150, and you
Yeah.
don't think you'll ever get, you don't think, well, if you need more than 30, you're gonna have to come back, and that kills your grant. But
Yeah.
you won't know that until you talk to the landscape architect, right?
This, the conversations I have had that say that 150 is a lot, way more than we would expect for design.
Okay.
So I put that as that's where I
Yeah.
think we will not go, but in case they do come up close to that, the 25% or up to 30, that works really well.
So, Brian, you have a 25 up to 30
Yeah, sure.
motion?
I'll make a motion to fund the design of the Mount Tom North Trailhead for 25% of the design cost, up to a maximum of $30,000, contingent upon approval of the Trails Grant by the Commonwealth of Mass.
I'll second.
So we have a motion that the CPA committee will commit up to $30,000 or 25% match for the Mount Tom Trails Grant. I will write a letter will be written by Jamie to that effect, language that you two can decide how it will work, and I'll sign it. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So,
Sorry, who seconded?
I think Jay did.
Jay did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7-0. Okay,
Thank you very much.
absolutely. So, let me know when I have to stop by and sign the letter. Okay.
So, thank you for doing that, and I do want to be clear that there are a couple other pieces, so I can make no guarantee that this all comes together, but this was a huge piece, so I'll inform the committee if we don't get the application in. So, the letter from the landowner is essential. We looked at the criteria, and it says that you have to have community outreach, and we believe that we've done that through this committee's process, the submission, and the public hearings, the public hearing that was held by city council where, you know, there was so much kind of support. So we've achieved that, so we're very well poised. I do want to make a caveat that anything can happen in the next 6 weeks, but this will not be a problem.
If it
Okay.
doesn't happen, we're disappointed in you personally.
Me too.
All right, you're up again on the dog park. As I understand it, you're requesting, again, a design grant. You don't know how much you're gonna ask for, but typically, this committee approves grants because you're going to leverage it against funding. What was that? Oh, and last night, he mentioned, JP, the STAN grant?
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you want me to, or?
Yeah, the only thing the only thing I would say is that the intent of this was to introduce it to this committee with a formal application coming next month.
Yeah, this is more of a fact-finding mission. and
So
just-
timeline-wise,
background.
you're not in a hurry.
Correct. This
You
is
get
correct.
us the good figures. It would be good to see in writing what we're trying to get as a matching grant
Yeah.
for the design. The design isn't by itself, there is a match for it, you think?
Yeah, just, I think,
Well,
it's
so-
important to note that this should be a fairly small request. The estimate is
Yeah, 1 to 9.
$9,000 or less to do pre-design work. So we have to invest in a schematic design and get a construction estimate before we're prepared to apply for the design in this case. So this is like seed money to allow us to do some exploration. So I think I'll hand it over to Councilor Zara to explain more, but it's not This is just a nominal set of funds to do some exploration and preparation to make the application.
Right, so the brief background on this, and to give credit where credit is due, is this was an idea that was brought to me by Chief Alberti and Sergeant Scribner. The Stanton Foundation is a large foundation that gives out a lot of grants for dog-related projects throughout the state. This is how the city got our wonder dog, Gino, in the police department. But of particular interest to us here is they also give out grants for dog parks. And their grants consist of two phases, a design phase and a construction phase. The design phase is a fully funded grant of up to $25,000, and then there's an additional construction phase grant which you apply for afterwards, which is up to, I believe, so I've read conflicting numbers, but it's either $225 or $250 with 10% funded by the municipality. Now, in order to
That's the construction cost?
that's the, yes, so I believe the Stanton Foundation will fund up to $225.
What's the name of it again?
Stanton, Stanton. But in order to get to the point where we can apply for the construction, for the design grant, we need to do some due diligence. And that would be to include selecting potential sites where we would build a dog park, and then creating kind of pre-design plans where we look at, in this case, we're saying 4 to 5 potential sites, where we create sketches to be able to present to the city with the intent of then narrowing it down to one specific site that we would vote on in some sort of public hearing, and to then be able to create consolidated design plans within the criteria outlined by the Stanton Foundation to apply for that initial up to $25,000 design grant. So it's kind of seed money, so to speak, and I'll turn it back.
No, I just want to add one thing. So with the design grant, they basically suggest or state or require that you have one site. So in Easthampton, we haven't had a broader discussion about where that site would be. So we can't, we're not poised to just submit, for one site. That's what this pre-design money will help have a community discussion, start with 4 sites and come to some general consensus on one, which will form the basis for the design grant.
You confused me. The design grant helps you look at sites.
No, that's the problem. It does not
Right.
let you.
So, are you asking for CPA money to help you look for sites that has nothing to do with the grant? Or am I'm confused?
We're asking for CPA money to help us undertake the process in order to create preliminary designs to narrow it down to one site with the appropriate schematics of designs to be able to apply for that initial design grant.
Right, so.
Okay, so we have a design grant from the CPA solely, which would fund design schematics to help you pick a site out of, say, 4 locations. Once that's done, you can apply for a main construction design grant,
Yeah.
which we would have to match as well, 10%, or we don't apply for
Design grant
that.
is fully paid for.
They pull, okay, and then you apply for the construction grant after the designs are done.
Right.
Once you know the
Yeah.
product.
But what you're coming here for, it's just for this first piece, which could be up to 9,
Yeah.
less than 9 grand.
Yeah, because as Owen said, I think, the property subcommittee has identified maybe 4 sites,
Mhm.
but we need help from a consultant to help. So there'd be pencil sketches, and there would be very rough cost estimates or pros and cons of each of those 4 sites that would be presented at a public meeting and
Yeah.
discussed. And then the idea is you come to that one, but the CPA money will also allow the consultant to draw a schematic on that chosen site, which is important, and then draw up a construction estimate. And though the site and the construction estimate are required for you to apply for the design.
So once you get the design grant, you don't need CPA matching for the design grant.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
And that-
Harry has a question.
All right, could you please tell me why do you need a construction, what do you construct on a dog on a dock thing. Well, explain to me, what are you building on this thing? Is it just like you got a couple acres and a dog run around? I mean, what do you put on there that's gonna cost all this money?
It's a good question. So on the packet, you know, at the last page, it's in the middle, and so if Easthampton had several discussions and had a site, we would still need probably some consultant help to do, on this last page is 2 of 2, this checklist, it's in the middle, the checklist of cost items to be considered in developing a draft construction budget. So, it's contractor mobilization, construction, erosion control, site clearing costs with clearing and grading of design, designated location, any site stormwater drainage, cost of surfacing with any preferred materials, fencing costs to encompass the entire site along with gating and internal divisions, walkway surfacing and bordering, consideration of handicap access, cost of water, fountains for potable water, dog park, surface irrigation. I think that's like an option. Consideration of electrical service and lighting, dog wash, dog.
I didn't realize it was that complicated. I'm
Well,
sorry.
but that's where they set you up that you have to do a fair amount of due diligence
Yeah.
before you can apply for the design.
I can see that.
Then they take the construction costs, and whatever that is, you can get your design grant is 25 is a percentage of that, up to 25,000. So that's where it gets really wonky.
So the schematic design will give you a pretty good estimate of the cost
Right.
of constructing it. Let's say it's 150 grand. You can apply
For $15,000
15,000
design, yeah.
to design it. And then once it's designed, you get bid, you can send it out to bid and then.
We get to a similar place where we were with the other project, which is you have construction drawings that are bid ready, which is a key place to be with a project like this. So then, so your construction grant then is based on this construction drawings and have an accurate estimate.
Refresh my memory, you don't want this money tonight because you still have to talk to an architect or a land to find out how much you need to apply for?
Well, yeah, so.
Why are we not applying tonight? That's, you did, but I'm just
I think we need
curious.
a more definitive number, and I think we were just doing our due diligence, fact-finding to find out what we need to bring before this committee to make an appropriate application.
Okay,
All right, I mean,
fine.
I guess,
I mean,
is
if you
there a
want to give us money
consultant?
tonight, we're happy with that.
Well, I can't
Is
because
there
you don't have
like-
an official
Right,
application. in front
yes,
of us, so.
exactly. So this is more of a fact-finding mission, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, is there a consultant that you know would be there, or I don't, you don't have to put that out to bid, would you?
The idea is that under a certain dollar amount,
Yeah, you don't have
the city can pick someone to come up with. Or
You don't
work
have to
with on
put that
this.
out to
So,
bid.
so you could get a quote for that and then apply with that quote, and then you know the exact number.
Multiple quotes,
Yeah.
Oh,
And also to answer Mr. Schuman and to entertain the rest of the committee's interest also, I have a municipal colleague in Fitchburg who was instrumental in building their dog park. And if you'd like, I could forward along their application so you can get a better idea ultimately if this is constructed, kind of what goes into construction.
it would be great if we had pictures of what they did.
Sure.
Did they actually build it, or is it in construction
I
phase?
think it's built, actually, yeah. I can.
Well, that'd be great. This is
Yeah.
somewhat like what you're gonna get. I think pictures are 1,000 words. I love it.
Absolutely.
Jim Ramsey in the Park and Rec has been to the one in Agawam, apparently has quite a setup down there.
Well, they have one down there?
I know that John from the Park and Rec has visited and talked to their Park and Rec guy regarding what they've done there, so.
So that was one of my questions. This will be maintained and supervised by the Park and Rec Department. It's a park, am I correct?
I'm not sure about a supervisor.
No, but all of our parks, there's not an on-site supervisor,
I'm not
but they're
sure.
under the
We've
Park
had-
and Rec Department.
I'd have to
I think it
clarify.
might be a mixed.
Yeah, there is a list of 5 or 6, maybe 7 communities in Massachusetts who have gone through this full process of design, construction, and have their dog park in place. And I think of the 6 or 7, there's probably like 3 or 4 different models, ways to do that. It is noteworthy that at the design phase, we're okay. We can pursue design and come up with the chosen site and have construction drawings. But before, so the way the sand foundation grant is set up is before you apply for construction drawings or construction funds, you have to have either a city committee or a volunteer group or commitment from the Parks Department to maintain. And so, I think the general understanding at this point would be that the Parks Department is not desiring to maintain this, so it would be ideal to,
Something
over
like
the next,
the
over the next.
Manhattan Rail Trail Committee, that's
Correct.
kind of a
or
committee that,
Friends of the Dog Park
Dogs,
who are
Yeah.
committed, legally and financially. to
chaired by
maintain.
Owen Zara, right?
I'm chaired by Jim Ramsey, I'm just facilitating.
Jim's pretty,
but-
Jim's pretty.
Well, it's like the front of the football, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, it's same
Well,
as,
same theory.
well, the Park and Rec Department, well, the city owns the Manhattan Rail Trail,
Right.
but it's maintained by the committee with help from the DPW when they need to, like, we just bought that grass thing that they had to cut the rail trail.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I
I think
guess
that's similar, but I'd like to know that that committee is in place. I guess at some point before, is it, Owen? or-
Well, so, I mean, so that committee could probably be in place tomorrow if we wanted to.
All right, so you don't have any.
But within 48 hours, we already have close to 100 members of the Friends of the Easthampton Dog Park on
Okay.
social media.
All
So
right.
I think if, I'd have to know how to, we'd actually have to set that up, a la the rail, like similar to the rail trail.
I
Maybe that
would check
could
with
be
Barbara,
done.
she would tell you.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I will say, as someone who's on the rail trail committee, I know that it's gone in waves as far as enthusiasm for actually going out and doing maintenance, and the same few people end up shouldering a lot of that, and there's been a desire for parks to take on more, like, just like as a, to make that sustainable over the long term. So I don't know what the discussion with parks has been, but I think that's not something to, like, you could still have a Friends of the Dog Park that would be contributing a lot of the maintenance, but I would urge you to explore discussions with parks as far as, just because,
We've had those discussions in the Parks Center.
so,
You're talking about adding, you probably have to add somebody to the park to be able to do something. That's the same thing that's happened in the past with the Manhattan. Right now, the way the staffing is in the park, I'm kind of speaking for John, we don't have the people
I,
to take care of that.
totally, and I totally understand, I mean, it's from the rail trail, I know that's been the, sort of.
I mean, the park got added, across the street here, that got added to the park, so we take care of that now too. So every time there's something new, the park kind of gets spread out a little bit more, so.
Totally.
Little resistant to.
And I totally understand that. I guess I'm just like, there is, I mean, and maybe that, obviously the discussion of expanding Parks Department would be a whole different thing. But I know that, speaking from the rail trail, it has gotten, I don't feel like it's actually, especially as the rail trail gets bigger, it's hard to sustain that from a maintenance
Right.
perspective. And so I leave that, to figure out sort of a long-term solution that's tenable for both the city and for the parks. And I mean,
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, so I think that the two processes can occur in parallel to each other because we're not making any commitment by obtaining a design grant and
Totally.
having construction-ready plans.
Yeah.
But obviously, it would be foolhardy to proceed ahead with a construction project where we don't have a plan on how to maintain it. And so that certainly needs to be, part of the process.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there's a proponent on the Park and Rec, Jim Ramsey, who's very, very much in favor of this.
Okay, yeah.
So, I mean, he's been one of the guys.
But we
pushing.
can't, I totally understand if you add maintenance, that's major work. And they have enough parks right now that they have to maintain, so I see that. That is not to say that in the distant future, we couldn't expand the park department. Big question of mine, and I'm sure it's true, you're citing city-owned property, we're not looking at land acquisition.
Correct, city-owned property only.
Okay. Okay, just wanted to make sure, because that's a different
No,
question,
that's,
right?
no, that's critical.
Okay.
That's the only topic.
I saw John first.
I just wanted to throw on there as well, so we're talking about maintenance in terms of personnel. Do you have ideas about the cost of maintenance that are non-personnel? Upkeep, replacement, repairs? Is there notions about
That'd be
that?
good to have an estimate of what that
Factoring
might
that in.
cost.
I think that's a great question. I would hope that, well, we can probably do more than hope. With the assistance of a consultant who kind of going back to the idea of capturing some images of existing parks, especially those that were funded by a Stanton Foundation, the consultant should be well prepared to kind of do that kind of visual inventory in advance of a public meeting to kind of go through the 4 sites. So I'm envisioning a public presentation with an overview of like Agawam, Fitchburg, and here are some sites, here are like the features that those communities decided, let's give the primer, then, you know, looking at things like how are they being maintained now, and what are the 4 different kind of models.
You need to know that maintenance question is gonna be a big question asked by the public, by the other counselors when we go before the council, because it's always the case, who's gonna do this? And we will look at the Manhattan Rail Trail Committee and see how that's been functioning. And if it has diminished in its returns, that's a problem that I think you just need to be able to answer that question in a positive manner. All right? Harry, do you have another question?
Yeah. What kind of hours of operation are we talking about here during the day?
You're not putting lights on it, are you?
Do you have any sense
So
of?
they're
what the-
requiring lights right here in the center.
I would assume it'd be, I
Does
mean,
it
the
say that in there?
I would assume you know, in the absence of lights, and I think it actually personally adds construction costs, and I don't know if that was necessary at first. You can't do phase construction plans with multiple grants, but I would assume dusk to dawn.
Parks
I
I've
mean,
seen are like that.
dawn to dusk, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, as
That's
soon as
the
you
dog.
add lights, you
It's for
have
the dogs to
Exactly.
rage.
As soon as you add lights in a site that might be in a neighborhood, you have a problem with the
Look,
neighbors.
I don't think.
And you're gonna
yeah.
have a problem with the neighbors even without the
Correct.
lights, so
Yes.
I just asking you to be cautious.
Yeah, sunrise to sundown.
That's the way they usually are. The 2 I've seen were like that.
Right.
Harry, you have more.
Another question I have is, you're gonna be carrying an insurance in this thing, in case somebody gets bit up there with this thing?
I'm sure.
I'd have to look into what the
have to raise
liability.
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's a city park.
Mhm.
You might ask Melissa what that means. We might have to add something to our 32B.
You take some kind of insurance policy out or something?
We have liability insurance now if Chief Alberti's dog bites somebody, the canine dog thought Ryan was a criminal and bit him.
The beauty is that there are at least 4 sort of working models of this, so we're,
Good,
you know,
that's great.
Yeah.
and perhaps in this case, it's good that we're not the first. So I think like the issue like liability is a critical one, but my gut feeling is that there's a way to get through this, as 7 municipalities have already done it, especially in Massachusetts, so.
There's a municipal cap on tort liability, which would probably apply to.
Right,
most
and
things
we,
that happen
you know,
in
we're
the
talking about
park.
trail easement on some other property, and, you know, that property owner is just not liable for, you know, people crossing over on it.
You know, anyway, enter at your own risk, that type of thing.
So my last question is, we have a leash ordinance in this city. The dog's supposed to be on a leash. Are these parks gonna be completely open, fenced in, or so that they can run around? Is that the idea?
That's the idea.
Yeah, and so the question actually, that's a good question too, is do we have to revisit the ordinance in regards to?
Well, yeah, just an idea of the,
No,
except in a fenced-in area, but.
Right, or as designated by Parks and Rec or someone, yeah, so that's something, we should talk about that.
And the other thing, we have I know because I wrote it, we have an anti-tethering ordinance that prevents a dog from being tethered for a long time. And if somebody decides, oh, it's a dog park, I can leave my dog here and I'm gonna go to the store for 3 hours down the mall, that's against the ordinance. So, just the little things for you to consider as you develop this. Okay. Any other, I love it. I think it's gonna be fine, and you're not asking for a lot of money. Even in the long run, if it's a $250,000 construction, the most we would pay is maybe 25? Is that what I'm looking?
10% of.
Yep.
of
So,
max,
it's good to know.
yeah.
But as much information as you can give the committee when you actually apply, especially budgets, maintenance ideas, anything, from the other communities that have done this, and pictures, we like pictures.
I can get you a picture.
Harry's question is a good one. What are we building? Is it an open field, or, I know there's gonna be containers and things like that, benches for people. I mean, are doggy runs, is there, I don't know.
My imagining is that it would be an interactive, it would be an open space / interactive type of features, you know, like agility type equipment, potentially some water features, although that adds cost. You know, an open run type of area, benches on the side, for people to just sit.
And what kind of fencing? Is it privacy fencing? How tall is it? Pictures of that kind of fencing
Right.
would affect the neighborhood.
Yes.
If you're gonna put it in a neighborhood area.
Yeah, and I think the selection, the fencing, the barrier selection would be based on the site, right? So, I mean, if you have someplace you could just do chain link, we would do chain link, but certainly if there's either site or sound mitigation that we need to consider, then we would honestly.
You can do that with planting.
There's one right off the highway when you're coming from Hoyle, coming
Yes.
into Easthampton.
There is a dog park?
Community field, if you look across,
Oh, yeah?
there is a small dog, I don't, it's a small one.
I wouldn't use that as the best example.
But it's a small, but at least you get an idea what kind of.
No, I
fencing
agree.
it
I
is.
mean, they did it, and I think it was a stand-in project, I believe, I'm not sure, actually, maybe not.
But
I
at least you
can't
can see that
believe-
there's fencing and
Yeah.
stuff there, you might get an idea what they did.
Yeah, they learned some issues.
I would say that this, if you cast out, it has a rather long, like, lead into the process. So we'll do the pre-design work with the consultant, publicly narrow down the site to one, have a schematic, and then we have $25,000 to work with another consultant who will totally refine all that. And I would imagine there'd be at least one public meeting to look at materials, type of fence, the exacts before, that design is finalized. So there'll be multiple, which I think is very good, there'll be multiple opportunities to have at least public meetings to discuss.
Are you gonna have, is the property committee intending to have a butter kind of public hearings? If you're gonna cite something in a neighborhood, I would think you'd wanna see if people would, how much objection you're gonna get before you spend the money on it. I mean,
Oh, absolutely. So I think that, yes, so that's the intention is through the process of preliminary design, which again helps both, design-wise, both helps rule in and rule out potential sites. We will ultimately, as we start to formally narrow down our selection, and we'll have some form of public hearing and butter notice, et cetera. Although a butter notice wouldn't be necessary because we wouldn't be building anything yet, but we'd have to probably have a discussion with potential butters.
well, you're just trying to head off any,
Oh, no, absolutely.
Issues.
And so what I would imagine, I mean, we're really getting ahead of ourselves. What I would imagine is some sort of community meeting where we
Right.
would invite all of the potential abutters or members of the community to come and have an open discussion with concerns, those share about their concerns and excitement about the project.
let me ask Andy this. Has the park commission looked at any parkland, like in Nonotuck, that might be available?
Nonotuck is not a place that we feel is suitable for this.
So-
Jim brought this to the meeting, we've been talking about this for
A long time.
a couple of meetings, probably 2 or 3 months, because Jim was one of the ones, he brought it to us a few months ago. We don't feel the accessibility is a good thing in the wintertime for the park.
Oh, there you go.
Land-wise, yeah, the park is not, I know I think it's on the list, but the commission itself, we had the meeting last night, strange enough, we don't feel that the park is a really good setup.
Because of the winter time. I mean, you wouldn't want it open in the winter, right?
Correct, yeah, so we, for the sake of including all potential sites, we included Nonotuck. Initially, there was kind of an informal kind of visioning meeting that took place a few months ago with myself and Mr. Bagg and Chief Alberti and Sergeant Scribner and John Mason to kind of, start this, talking about this and how we could move forward. And Nonotuck was mentioned, but for all the reasons you said, and especially the seasonal access issues, while in an ideal world, if you were open in the winter, it might be a good idea, you're not, and so it kind of rules that out.
Well, we have this Mount Tom North Trailhead that might be available too.
Well, that could be the dog park annex then, whether we build our second one, but Jeff, I'm talking a lot.
No, I mean, and so the other sites are city-owned property behind Parsons Street School. The city owns a parcel at the end of Highland Ave called the Boy Scouts Camp. There is a parcel adjacent to the treehouse development that, for some references, was used when pond was dredged. The dredge was put on this parcel, so it's city-owned. And then
The Oliver Street up there.
the Oliver Street near the landfill. So there's, a part of the site is taken up by solar, but there's a fairly significant remaining part of that, which we looked at. We also looked at, the city owns another parcel on Oliver Street, which is the old town farm, the town lodging house. but it's surrounded by land and agricultural protection restriction, the APR program. So we started with a list of 4 that we think are, we think that they're a good list to start, and then have a consultant do the assessments, the basic assessments, cost estimates, and pencil sketches, and then have some community discussion.
All right, we have a lot to talk about yet tonight, so, you're gonna come back with a next meeting, maybe?
Next meeting, yeah, with an
All right.
application.
Yeah, so what do you need from us in terms of?
Jamie will inform
Okay.
her boss what needed.
Okay, all right.
As an application letter, that's simple.
Okay.
All right?
Pictures, budget, information on
Guys,
Well,
liability.
anything you can
Some
give us.
reliable numbers.
If you got some numbers from another
Some
community.
reliable numbers,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
numbers
I mean,
that
a
are, numbers
quote
that
is
are
the
based
big
on
thing.
something.
Yeah.
But you want
Okay.
numbers, please. All right, thanks, guys, I appreciate it.
The next topic,
Just making that.
discussion regarding additional set-aside. I would like the committee to consider supplemental appropriation, not part of the budget is separate, of $300,000 moved out of undesignated into the set-aside for Old Town Hall. Why? I was very concerned after our last meeting about the cost of borrowing something like $3 million. So the more we can put into a fund in it, we're committed to the project, but that doesn't mean this money is going to be forever lost. If some reason this project doesn't come to fruition, we just move it back. But my point on this is, I don't want to wait, if they get going and maybe like middle of next year, they want to start borrowing the money, I'd like to have money set aside for it. Now, that's a lot. That puts us at $500,000, which we could add more with the new budget, but we have 1.2 million remaining. 1,227,000. So we'd be a little bit under $1 million when we're done. 930,000 still in our budget. I just feel like I'm worried about that. Waiting to the last minute. We could decide at the time of the bond, okay, we can move money at that point and say, all right, we're gonna put the 200 we have in there plus another 500. We could do that. But by putting it into the set aside, we know it's there, and when other projects come in, we're not gonna. That's just my thought. I didn't know how you felt, it was just air.
I told you the great, I set that 300,000 aside in the long run.
It puts us up to 500 if we
Yeah.
put the 300.
So, if you wanna space that out over, if you look at some of the figures you gave us, that 300,000 over 20 years would probably cost us like 600,000 or 500,000. So you're actually saving money by,
The more we can give them in cash than borrowing,
Yeah.
absolutely.
we're actually saving money. It sounds like we're spending money, but we're actually saving.
Other members, what do you guys think? I mean, it does mean there's less money in the undesignated fund. There's only $355,000 there. But we still have quite a bit in affordable housing, open space, preservation. So if we had to do this $250,000 project, that wouldn't be a problem still.
Are you contemplating that if the project goes forward, this extra 300 grand automatically goes directly into the project as opposed to?
We still have to vote on that
You still
until
have to
the
vote at the
council.
time, so you could still. vote
I'm just
at
saying, we
that
put it
time
there,
to-
it's like-
To bond the whole thing or to fund some of it and bond
We
some of
could
it.
do that, yeah. But what I'm trying to do is prevent us, I'm trying to say, look, we really want to make sure, I think Melissa especially would like us to make sure that we know that this is gonna cost a lot, and the more we can give them in cash. But also, if we get major projects coming in, we're committing this 500,000, say there, and another major project comes in that's 400,000 or 500,000, and we decide to fund that, then we're up against it when the bonding comes. So, you see, I'm trying to
no,
say to, I guess I'm saying to you, I'm prioritizing this project,
Yeah.
big time, because it's a huge economic development thing for the city.
It's basically
And I'd
carving
lo-
it out for mental purposes.
It is,
You
it
know, the
is.
city
Well,
might-
it has to be approved by the city council, we
Yeah,
have to
right.
do a supplemental, so.
I mean, I get what you're saying. We have our next meeting is our big meeting, right?
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
No?
We can, it's It's next on the agenda.
It's next to the agenda, okay, but eventually we're gonna have that, whether it's
Yes.
our next meeting or not. Perhaps one thing we do, I mean, in that meeting is typically when we would know of other big things that might be coming down the pike. To be able to sort of get a sense of what else is there. I mean, I just to play the other side of it, if there's, you know, big projects that are coming that we feel like we want to fund that need that money, but
That
we're
are
able to
at the
finagle the
sewer,
bond,
maybe.
that needed, yeah, more, like, so,
Well, let me say this, yeah, the Mount John Trailhead, that's a big one. When they go for, right now, he's just applying for a commitment. But let's say that construction is a match of $200,000, that's a lot. I mean, maybe it's 50%, man, I don't know how much
Yeah.
that would cost. But, and then this one's $250, that's $450,000. We could easily afford that and still move this aside.
and there might be others, I mean, I'm just
Well,
saying.
there might be, but I'm.
Well, that's why I'm saying maybe to wait to that meeting to learn more from the community of what, you know, because that's really the yearly opportunity where people say, like, submit what you know.
We should fund
I
this, we
did.
should fund that.
And
yeah.
so just to have a better sense of that, you know, we still could do this, you know, we're not losing the
good point.
opportunity to move it.
That's a
I
good
just-
point.
2 months doesn't matter.
Right.
No, it doesn't
Like, I don't
matter.
see it happen, and so.
But you
Is
should
there any
know that
time
we're gonna
sensitivity
submit our
to this?
budget request for next year. We're gonna move another 200 in, I
Yeah.
would think. So that'll get us up to 700,000, which is a great number to have if the bonding comes through next year, say. That was my thought, you know, $750,000 in place would really help us also to get the bond when we have to do it. They know we're gonna commit, it's a $3 million bond and we're gonna commit $750 cash. They're gonna like that, the bonding companies. Interest rate goes down. So all I'm doing is looking at the one major project, I wanna see that. But I totally agree, let's find out. I'd like to ask Jeff, do
Yeah, I
you
was
see
just gonna
other
say that,
things?
right.
I didn't think of that, I could ask him, Jamie, if you could ask if he has anything beyond these two projects. And even if it's a guess at the cost of these projects when they're fully done, you know, I'd like, that's a great thing. So, okay, I'm willing to wait. I just wanted you to know that that's on my radar to do if this committee's in favor. Anybody else?
I like Scott's idea, let's wait and see what pops up, and then, you know,
Okay.
I agree with your general concept, that you don't wanna spend yourself into a corner where you end up having to bond the entire amount just because you don't have any balance to put a down payment, so I like the idea, but let's see what else is out there.
It doesn't usually happen because usually we have excess, but.
Right, yeah, and they haven't spent themselves into a
If
corner
2
yet,
months-
but.
2 months doesn't change anything, or whenever you're.
Well, I don't think it will. I think it's great, though, to get the ideas. We always ask, and people come forward, but the last 2 times we've had that general meeting, we haven't heard
Crickets
anything
up there.
major. Jeff's come up with stuff. So he's a big,
There are, I mean, from the discussions I've had with people, there are about half a dozen or so projects that are moving along very slowly from different organizations that, when they submit, they could be in the $200,000 ranges.
each?
Some of them, yes.
It's fairly small.
But I mean,
Small, though.
it's small, yes.
But if there's 5, that's $1
There's
million.
5.
Right?
You don't fund everyone that comes in front of you.
No, but I mean, like literally, like,
I mean-
what have we not funded
So-
ever?
Oh,
Like
yeah,
the-
no, it's.
And that could be over a period of years.
Northampton is the only
guys.
thing I can think of, right? I mean, and that's because we've always had money.
What did we get this year? 400,000 from the state, and if they
No, we got 400,000 in local revenue, we got a
20% match.
20% match.
160,000, they also gave us some money, the governor gave us money. So let's just say local revenue is 500,000 next year. We need to remember that we're still getting money in.
Right.
And if this projects that people are coming along slowly, I'm not worried about it. I just want to make sure we have that money set aside. If we ever have a problem where, look, we have all these projects and it's $1 million and it's going to leave us really tight, then we could say, all right, town hall is really not coming along, we could pull it back. It's not like we're losing the money.
I think though that once it's set aside, it has to be either set aside for a specific project,
Right.
in which case it's guaranteed for that project,
Right.
or it's set aside into the set-aside account, in which case it's only used for like historic preservation or.
One of those things, yeah.
And so, you know, if there's a motion to bring it to city council for $300,000 to set aside
For the old town hall project.
for that old town hall project, then
It's stuck there.
it's there.
It's there, but if the old town hall project in 5 years doesn't come to fruition, we could still move it out. We could say no more town hall project. I mean, all I'm saying is we're committing the money, and I'm hoping if we do have to spend it, but it's not like it's gone.
No, but you think it's hard to get it back out?
It would be hard to get it back out if they're still getting grants and they're still moving forward.
It's hard to get any, I mean, every time we fund a project, it's hard to get that money back once it.
Right.
Yeah, I keep asking, what about
2005, right, I mean,
that, what
yeah.
about that clock we did years ago?
I was gonna bring it up too. No, you think about that.
No, don't start on the clock.
You got some kid who went to grade school, got start going to kindergarten. Now listen, this may sound stupid, but some kid gets in the kindergarten, now they're a senior in high school, and this clock thing still isn't straightened out. Now think about the time involved in that.
All right, anyway, let's find out what's coming down the pike, but I really want to do this because I am very concerned that, and as I say, I don't want the committee to say, all of a sudden say, all right, we need to have 200, we need to do 500 more and pull it out all at once for the bonding. If we can do 300 now, 200 next year, and maybe the bonding comes along, you know? If it takes 3 years and we put money in, it's less than we bonding, but we're still putting money aside for it. I hope it doesn't take that long for them to get money, and I really think if we demonstrate to the community that we're really committed to this, it'll help their fundraising. I really do, so that's just my thought. But I agree with Scott. Let's talk, what about our meeting there, Jamie?
I have a feeling you're busy.
No, I haven't put any.
Feelers out?
Feelers out. We can do it in February as we're planning for it. I sent out the last year's preservation plan in the folder. I don't know if people had a chance to look at it in the Dropbox, if there was any comments or changes. Typically though, we've had more input before we open up, before we had the hearing. And I just haven't had an opportunity to send out those emails and ask the groups what they are planning to
All right.
submit for funding this year. And
Well, you said there's a few projects coming down the pike. I'd
Yeah,
like
I
to
mean,
know
so-
what they are.
so, I don't want to speak for other committees, or other groups, but there's.
So you want to send an email to the
I mean, but
committees?
I know that there's a very large pond dredging project. There's a Parks and Rec project, the stone building, and
Okay.
maybe pickleball courts, and the bathroom. Previously we had funded, I think, we set aside funds, but the
Yeah,
parks
the grant didn't come through.
didn't get the grant, so they returned those
Well,
funds.
I think it's very important for the committee to know what that is, what those are, even if they're in the very formative stages, because budgeting this big project is something we need to know what's coming up. It's very important.
I believe
So
John's,
let's-
I'm sorry, I believe John's coming next month.
So why don't we do March for our annual meeting?
I'm thinking that February is too soon for people to
Yes.
get their act together.
Well, it's January, we don't have
right.
another meeting.
Yeah.
And let's all look at the preservation plan on the Dropbox and see if there's anything we want to add. But I always relied on Jamie, if there's anything take anything out that's dated. Jamie, you always do all that, right?
I'm not going to be here on February 21st.
Do you want to change the meeting time? We can do that. Where's my calendar?
I'm going to be away that week. So we could. We can figure that out.
Well, since I can't make the meeting either.
Push it out to the next week.
Unfortunately, I have a charter meeting as well on the
A different
28th.
day.
Well, we could make it, it could be the 19th, Tuesday.
I'm not gonna be here that week.
What week aren't you here? Oh, the
The
20.
week of the 21st, I'm gonna be.
So do it the Thursday before, what about that?
Can we do the 26th?
14th.
We can't do the 14th, there's a charter committee meeting.
Oh, that's the, I thought you were saying the following week, then do the 26th.
Well, the
then.
14th to the 28th are charter committee meetings.
Oh.
26 or 28?
We can do something that's not a Thursday.
26th.
26th is good.
What's that? That's a.
Tuesday. How's that look on your calendar, Ken? And that's not that's a regular meeting, that's not the general, that's not the.
Right.
Well, let's not go beyond
Might not
March.
even have business.
Well,
So
we
we need to
back
talk
to-
we're
about.
gonna have
Well,
this,
so-
Yeah, we need
Yeah.
to talk about the March.
The plan and advance the March
yeah.
meeting.
And March will be that would be the 21st of March would be our general meeting upstairs. Okay? And you'll send out feelers for that? We need to find out.
So.
And then I'll use the April meeting to move the money, once we find out what we got.
It could possibly be a planning board meeting that, you know, they've been meeting every Tuesday now for about 2 months. So whether that will continue or not, who knows?
The 26th.
Is it always the fourth Tuesday?
They're meeting every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday?
Yeah.
Glad I'm not on that meeting.
Too many things going on.
Well, you know, you vote for cannabis, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Is that really what you guys are dealing with?
But they're dealing with one of those, is that.
This coming Tuesday should be good. If nobody's got nothing to do,
Well, I'll tell you
Then
what,
I
we're
figure
making
cannabis.
dibs on the 26th, so if you wanna come to our meeting or their meeting, that's up to you.
You know you look there. Come on.
But that meeting, the
I fit
26th
into the
is here.
planning board so much better.
The meeting on the 21st of March is upstairs, correct? Because we divide all the, all
Yes.
right, so let's make sure that that's set aside for us.
What time, is it 6:30 that
6:30.
works on the Tuesdays? The
6:30, 6:30 is what we all want for meeting time, so. Are we definitely doing that, guys?
26th.
Of February?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Speaking of the March meeting, I know ordinarily people come to us with projects, but I read in the paper the other day that the Stop and Shop plans for the Tasty Top are essentially dead now.
Well, that's
The
gone.
property's on the market.
Properties on the market. I don't know what
If anybody
people feel
wants
about
to-
that. I mean, it's
if any-
obviously
if
something you
any-
need a significant.
If anybody wants to know anything about Stop and Shop,
Yeah,
ask me.
okay. Is it
Yeah.
Stop and Shop? Is it Stop
Can
and
we
Shop?
do
Well,
that? I wanna go
All the
home.
blanks.
Can we
Yeah.
not do that at this meeting?
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about after the meeting.
No,
All right,
but
so we're
just
gonna
throwing it
meet
out there.
on the
It'd be nice to
26th
acquire
of
that chunk
February.
property.
Okay? Anything else? What do you need from the 19 meeting schedule? What is that all
I
about?
was putting it out there that there was a draft, whether or not those dates look good to people.
You're just gonna change the February one.
I'm gonna change the February
The
21.
21st will be the public meeting.
Yeah, they're fine with me. I think we should just keep it the same time every month when we can.
It's been, okay.
Yeah,
Just make sure Barbara knows we're changing that meeting date
The-
and get
the
this,
February 21st would be
the
February
26th,
Yep.
and we get this room.
For March 21st, yes,
Well, we get this room for the 26th of February,
yes.
and upstairs for the 21st of March. Okay?
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
Somebody say they seconded it.
I did. Retro.